Hey guys, welcome to the Ever Podcast. We are back yet again.
I'm Joshua.
I'm Casper. And with us today, we have our good friend Vinaya.
Hello.
Welcome, Vinaya. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Vinaya without a last name. We'll explain that later. What, does Vinaya have a last name?
It doesn't.
Okay. So Vinaya is a good friend of ours, and we've known him for over 6 years. And you're an interesting dude just by yourself. You've had an amazing life. You were with Osho for many, many years.
Yes.
The Sanya Sins. You have a lot of stories, I'm sure, to share from that. But amongst your tales and adventures and consciousness and Osho life and some other stuff, which I'm not sure you want to share here of your previous
Might
careers.
go a little bit above the crystal, yes.
We're here to talk about a subject which hasn't really gotten a lot of, at least the attention and explanation I think it has online. Like you can't really find like really in-depth stuff. There's few people who are actually going in depth into crystals and how they actually work. And what our interest here today is how it affects human consciousness and how it affects water. And so we'd love to hear about that because you are a rock hound from what from.
I think the first crystal I had was around 14, 15 years old and was love on first sight. And I've been a fan ever since. And yeah, I started actually collecting crystals and minerals and was really into it. I wanted to study mineralogy, but that didn't work out, luckily. Otherwise, I probably would sit in a museum somewhere and dusting off specimens. So I have a really scientific background of like names and where you find these things and how you find them and how they grow and all of that, because I was really interested. I'm not quite sure when, but about 30 years ago, I was in Hawaii and I met this guy who was showing a person what a crystal does to your auric field, to your energy field, and what negative effects, so to speak, can be had with the wrong kind of jewelry one has. So what he did is he had a pendulum and he measured the energy field, how far it extends out of the body of this woman who he was demonstrating with. And her energy field was, she had no jewelry, nothing. It was about 1.5 feet outside her body. Then he had her put a Swarovski crystal, these artificial lead containing crystals, as a pendant on her neck and trying to find her energy field, and it wasn't there anymore. So he came with the pendulum straight to her body and no reaction whatsoever.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, okay, I'm not going to wear this stuff anymore. That's for sure. Anyway, he put a crystal on her, a normal quartz crystal, as a pendant. And her energy field was 3 times further out than without. I saw that, and again, something clicked. And I've been working energetically with crystals ever since.
You've got a ton of crystals.
Yeah.
I'm actually renting a home from you right now. So I've just been up there a couple of days ago and he's got like drawers and drawers of crystals.
He could open an online shop easily.
Yeah.
I could. And I did have a store at one point in my life. I still do buy and sell and find crystals because it's also one part of my joy to move these crystals to persons who are in need of energetic help. Mm-hmm. And that's often very, very obvious that, this one here. Yes. Okay. Mm. So that's part of my passion there. Mm. Yeah.
So could you give us an overview? Because a lot of people listening might be wondering, this is something I wonder too. We have this notion that crystals can affect consciousness and can aid us. Some are good for this, some are worse for that. You wouldn't give me an insight the other day because I have this obsidian pendant here. Actually, I'm afraid to touch it now. I was wearing this for a couple of months and you gave me the story of what that does. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I don't want to wear that anymore. So but how is it?
Yeah. Oh, I'm curious. What does it do then?
Obsidian?
Mm-hmm. Well, what it does is, besides many other things, okay, maybe I need to say before, every mineral, every crystal has a different vibration, so has a different effect on our energy field. Mm-hmm. And there are basic vibrations, like quartz is an amplifier, amethyst is a cleaner, black tourmaline is a cleaner. Mm. Many basic properties, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, and then on top of that is the individual in the moment property. So a stone can be attracted to you because there's something one needs to learn, which not necessarily has anything to do with the property of the stone, but it will help you nevertheless to learn your lesson or become more balanced or whatever the issue is. Obsidian, the basic properties, one of them is you will be made aware, conscious, talk about consciousness. The stone makes you actually, or gives you the ability to look and be aware of what is the right course of action. For example, you have like 2 or 3 different jobs or things you want to do. You have an obsidian with you, it becomes very clear what is the right course of action, the most beneficial course of action. Now, if you do not heed that, the stone will sort of stop you from doing that. And I have a very good example of that. Actually, I had an obsidian in my pocket, and it was really funny because a friend of mine who's also into stones in that time, he immediately knew what was going on. Anyway, I had 4 different things to do in 4 different places, hundreds of miles apart, in no time. I can do it anyways. I knew it's not possible, and I knew this is not right. But I'm stubborn, so I said I want to do it anyways. I can do it. I was in a restaurant. I got up. I walked down the stairs, slipped, and almost broke my ankle. I didn't do anything for a few days.
Oh, wow.
And a friend of mine came passing by just after it happened, and he looked at me and he said, "What happened?" I said, I fell. Yeah, he said, "You have an obsidian on you?" I said, "Yeah, I do." So, yeah, well, did you not listen? Like, no. So the stone stops you. Something might happen which makes you not go the wrong course of action. Mm-hmm. So if you wear an obsidian, you really want to be conscious of your decisions.
So only wear it when you're really clear about what you're doing.
Yeah, or when you are able to listen to your intuition.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
When you don't doubt yourself. Mm-hmm. When you let your mind run the story. Mm-hmm. Because it works more energetically on an intuitive level.
Okay.
It's not necessarily that the stone tells you, yeah, if you do this.
Oh, now
blah,
I know
blah, blah.
why he told you to take it off.
Yeah, you're not listening.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, so that's the story about the obsidian. And crystals, they're amazing. And let's start with the most amazing one, which is quartz. And why is it so amazing? Well, the life on this planet is silica-based and carbon. And silica is a very important mineral for our life forms, for our bodies. So we have a lot of it. Besides water, is the second most element we have in our bodies. So energetically, quartz crystals, which is the same thing, resonates at the same frequency as the quartz in our body. And so we are very much affirmed. What do you say? We're very...
in tune?
In tune, thank you.
Synchronized?
Yeah, synchronized with quartz crystals and the vibration of them. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. The other thing, as we know from computer, we can program. It stores information, quartz does. So we can program our crystals to have it do what we want it to do. Now, how do they actually do that? It's actually very simple. We are not just physical. We are also energetic. We have a vibration. Mm-hmm. When we are healthy, when we are in tune, when we are without dis-ease, most of our vibrations are functioning the way or in the frequencies and cycles as they're supposed to be. Now, when that is disturbed, we are off our frequency. We are distorted. More in the negative, more in the positive, what you have. Now, put a crystal into our energy field, they will harmonize. So the crystal, the frequency, the energy of the crystal influences our discoordinate, disorganized energy and they over time slowly starts to harmonize, and the body comes back into non-dis-ease, into ease. Sound healing works on the same principle. More basic or more physical, when we have a sinus waves, like a wave which goes up and then goes down to zero and then goes into negative, then comes up again, a frequency, a curve.
Mm-hmm.
If we put the same curve opposite onto this curve, I hope that makes sense without showing a picture.
Like kind of the opposite. When the curve go up, you put another one that goes down.
Exactly.
Except like a mirror image.
Yes, and they neutralize each other.
Mm-hmm.
So
they phase each other out.
Phase each other out. So with sound healing or crystals or light, we put a certain opposite frequency into the distorted energy field and cancel these things out. Very simply speaking, but that's the principle of how crystals also work. Quartz crystal is amazing. You can program it. And one professor, I think he was, a doctor, Dr. Vogel in the 60s, came to experiment through other means, got interested in crystals, and found out that through focused breath, one can charge a crystal. And the crystal will discharge that energy out of one end. He could measure that. That's a little bit too scientific for me, these devices, what he used, but he showed graphs and it's all very scientifically proven.
So this is the same guy, just for the listeners who know, who invented the Vogel crystal shape, which we can get into later, right?
Yes, that's what I'm coming to, because he found out that if he cuts a quartz crystal in a certain shape, which is the same shape as the tree of life, has the same angles as the pyramid of Cheops. So it's very interesting sacred geometry.
Mm-hmm.
If he cuts a crystal in that to the specific dimensions and then measures the frequency of this crystal, he found out that it is exactly the same frequency as water.
Wow.
Since he can charge the crystal.
But water can change its frequency. So he must have some kind of baseline.
Base water.
Baseline.
Non-structured water, just water.
Mm-hmm.
And which had no influence of anything.
Yeah.
He measured that.
Yeah.
And then he charged the crystal and put that charge through the crystal into the water and found out that the water gets immediately structured, becomes a liquid crystal, and can hold information. Specifically, the information I put first into the crystal.
Hmm.
And he found also out that the information is held indefinitely.
In the water?
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
And it does, well, wow. I wouldn't be kidding you. It would be Dr. Vogel kidding you. But he measured all this and he did a whole scientific approach and research.
Well, it will hold. So I need some practical details here. So if he charged the water with the crystal, it will hold the structure. The water will hold the structure as long as the crystal is there. Even without the crystal.
Yes, and you can put a drop or 5 of this structured water into unstructured water, and it turns into structured water.
Wow!
Like a homeopathic.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's hard for my mind to believe, but actually I've seen science confirming this. So,
it's been
it must be real.
Yes.
And so that's amazing. So anybody who's listening out here who want to structure their water in a very easy way. So basically, there's a lot of listeners here who's going to want to structure their water this way. My question to you is, let's say they have a vocal crystal and they're programming with that breath. Yes. And let's say they do a very successful programming.
Yes.
And they just leave this crystal alone on a shelf and nobody touch it and nobody does anything to it. Will this crystal also hold this information for years to come? And you can use this to program your water for years to come at all times. It will not deteriorate?
I have not experimented with it, but I know from natural quartz crystals that they hold their charge or their information indefinitely. Unless you, for example, put them in salt water.
Okay.
Or running water or sunlight. which does not happen when they're still in the earth. But once they're out, that's how one cleans one's crystal of unbeneficial energies.
Okay.
Because if, for example, you buy a crystal in a store, it could have been handled by
anybody,
and there's maybe some energetic patterns you are not really not very beneficial for you. So it's good to clean them. So unless you clean your crystal or a crystal, the charge or the information will stay.
How do you clean a crystal? Let's get clear with that.
Very easy. Running water. Ask the water to take all unbeneficial energy and bring it into the earth. Sunlight, moonlight. Salt water is often recommended. It has a little bit of a danger because if it's too salty or too long, one could erase everything, which one does not necessarily want to do. And another method, which I always find really hilarious in a certain way, and one has to be careful with it, is the freezer. You put the crystal in the freezer for a few hours and all unbeneficial energies gets kind of like discharged into the ice, I believe. You just need to be careful that you don't have too fast a temperature difference so that the crystal doesn't shatter.
Oh, wow. And also that energy might go into your frozen food.
Yeah, I never actually really was a fan of it, but it sounded always very funny. I got this from Melody, who has, by the way, one of the most amazing books of crystal power, so to speak, or the benefits of crystal energy. It's called Love is in the Earth. I'm an absolute fan. After 45 years working with crystal, I still love this book, and it's still sometimes I look.
Nice. Love is in the Earth.
Love is in the Earth, yes.
But do you remember? Melody?
Yeah.
Wow, awesome.
So you spoke about charging crystal with focused breath. Can you explain? Before we get unload the list of crystals, let's talk about how do you work with crystals. There's wearing the crystal, right? But then you're talking about erasing the memory, which, okay, we know how to do that now. But how do you program it with your consciousness and
with your breath? How do you do that?
Okay, there's two ways: a focal way, which is breath, and the other one is intention, which is more easy in a certain way, because the breath is just a charge, and we breathe in and breathe out very sharp through the nose.
And make sure you don't have any boogers in your
Yes.
So we're going to cover our crystals with boogeymen.
We do that. So, and you have to do it for a little while. So it's not a very easy solution as far as I'm concerned. And it's very valid.
You cannot breathe out through the mouth and program it?
No, it's somewhat, when we breathe out through the nose, the intent is more focused like a laser.
Well, in yoga, they do lots of pranayamas through the nostrils because the nadis that goes through the brain and all that stuff is much higher energies than if you only do it through the mouth. So I could imagine some kind of energetic reason for that.
Yes. And it's also that... Okay, we can go into a million different things. So let's stay focused here on
stay on topic.
The charging of the crystal. Okay, just as a general rule, I buy my crystal, I find my crystal, then I don't necessarily have to do the cleaning process. But let's say I buy my crystal and I clean it, running water, sunlight, moonlight.
How long time would you do running water?
5-10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, you get the feeling, now it's good. And so my crystal is clean. Then I want to tune to it. I will have it with me for at least 3 days, 24/7. At night, I put it under my pillow. Don't let anybody really touch it. Really get attuned to the crystal. Maybe meditate a little bit with it. Whatever feels right. But just be with that crystal. And after the 3 days, in the case of a quartz crystal, most of minerals are not programmable. They just have intrinsic values. Quartz is one of the few which you can program.
Interesting.
And it's very easy. First, you need to get clear about what you wanted to do. And you want to get clear and specific and precise. The crystal or existence doesn't hear stories. I don't want to tell the crystal a story. I want to be really precise. I want you to make me more conscious, or I want you to protect me from unwanted energies, or what have you not. I become very clear about that. I take the crystal in my right hand. Even if you're left-handed, you still do the right hand. And project that intention, that thought into the crystal. You can speak it out loud. Preferably feel how it feels when one is protected or one becomes more conscious. And project that intent into the crystal. 5 times, 10 times, half an hour, until you think, wow, he got it. And that's what the crystal will be doing then. As for other people touching your crystal, that really depends on you. In general, I would say no. And when somebody asks you, you can look and go, oh yeah, that's okay. Or you can go, no, thank you for asking. Because it's a personal relationship one has with the crystal.
Is there a reason for holding it in the right hand?
It's the outgoing, so my energy goes out into the crystal. My left hand is the feminine side, which takes it in, which would take energy in.
Thank you. So that's quartz, and there's many different types of quartz.
Yes.
Rose quartz, smoky quartz.
Citrine, milky quartz, amethyst. They're all programmable. And they're all very easy resonating with us.
So when we're working with water, you should probably be suggesting just getting some type of quartz, programming it, putting it in the water.
Yes, I have in my water pitcher is a quartz crystal and a moldavite, by the way. Yeah.
Okay. So should we talk about some of the other stones, minerals, and crystals, and
sure,
how they work, and if we were to put them in water, what they would do, but really their effect on consciousness, their properties.
Yeah, let's touch on primarily the ones that we can work with in relationship to water.
Quartz and moldavite.
And what is moldavite?
Moldavite is a scientific debate, but most likely came to pass. It's a tektite. It's a glass meteorite. It's not a classical meteorite, which is a piece of rock or iron in space, which comes too close to Earth and gets caught. It consists of glass, the same way as volcanic glass does. So what the scientists believe, and I think that's correct, is a meteor came, huge explosion, lots of fusion of material, which got thrown back into space and then came back down to Earth. Because they found out that the bubbles in the moldavite and other tektites is less density of air, up to no air in these bubbles. Mm-hmm. And the streaks on the surface really indicate that it's been outside the atmosphere and coming as little fireballs back down to Earth.
Wow, interesting.
So it's a fusion between meteorite material and Earth material. Mm. And moldavite is a very specific one. It's like a bottle green glass, and it comes from Czechoslovakia. And it's said that the crater came 128 million years ago or something like that. In Germany, the meteorite came down. There's a huge crater there, and it kind of like correlates with the time frame geologically. And it's called the star stone. And it's one of the few stones which you actually don't need to clean. It doesn't take anything on. And it gets charged by the sun. And talk about consciousness and awareness, it makes one more aware of things which are not perceivable by our six senses. Unseen things, different energetic things. For example, a friend who was working in leather started working with the moldavite, and suddenly his perception of color combination was completely different. And it was also like you saw his pieces afterwards, it was more like, whoa, they had a different quality to them. When I worked with that stone first, I came out of what is, like I read in the book, what does amethyst do? And somebody asked me about amethyst, I'm telling what amethyst does. So what would amethyst do for me? Oh, it would clean your energy, it would bring you more into meditation, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly, I knew exactly what is the amethyst doing for you in this moment, in this point of your life? Completely different understanding, tapping into different finer, or I'm at loss for words, energies. So that's a very beneficial stone for becoming more aware.
And also more creative, but more on an intuitive level.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well,
Yes.
I just got this one from you 2 days ago, so I'm excited to work with it.
I was told it's a pretty intense stone, and you're gonna definitely be processing your stuff with it.
There is that possibility, yes. And it is a very subtle stone. Most people have challenges to actually perceive. And then a Herkimer diamond, for example, a quartz crystal again, bridges the person with the stone, so one has a little bit more, is more able to perceive finer energies. And if we are very sensitive, these finer energies are usually more strong than brutal force.
Yeah.
And go deeper. So yes, it can be very intense. And I've never heard of any negative, so to speak, incidences with the moldavite that, oh, this was too much, I went crazy.
Okay.
Because stones or anything in that matter, for that matter, you really only can go so far, even with tools, as far as you are able to go. A stone would never really push you over the edge. Or a medicine, plant medicine. They all have their consciousness themselves and really tune in with the person they're working with. It's not that you call the crystal calls you. Yeah, you might have an idea when you go in the store or what you want to buy, but then you most likely end up with something else. If you go with your intuition, that is.
If you were to program your water, if you wanted to biohack your water, what crystals would you, what would you do? Just take me through
I would do nothing much. I would get myself a quartz crystal, and I have a lot of quartz crystals. So I just go around and see who's going to say hello for this. And clean it, quickly programming it to charge and structurize my water. And put my love in there.
and put in.
And put it in the water.
Would you put moldavite in?
I do have moldavite there as well.
Okay.
Funny, I couldn't give you the reason. But the moldavite was going like, hey, me too. And it might sound funny, but working with crystals or working with energetic phenomena is a very intuitive, non-mind undertaking. So I'm really much listening specifically to stones.
So you got quartz crystal, moldavite inside your water. Do you have anything else in?
Yeah, I actually have a piece of a silver spoon in it for antibacterial purposes.
Okay. And anything else?
No.
Okay. That's for us like drinking water, right? But
Yes.
here at Ever, we just tend to science that we are mostly water, 99%.
Right.
And so this is a fascinating topic to really discuss, how crystals and minerals affect our consciousness. And really curious to hear more for those people who want to know about, what kind of stones could I work with to get this or that effects. We've covered moldavite, quartz. I'm holding in my hand. What am I holding in my hand?
It's called an ajoite.
Ajoite. By the way, guys, for you listening, I'm going to post all the pictures of these stones that we discuss on this podcast below the podcast, like on the post on our website. So if you want to know how these look like, this is ajoite. And you have told me this is one of the most powerful stones one can work with.
Well, it depends what one wants. You were wanting consciousness and awareness. So
Be careful what you ask
if
for.
I want a Rolls Royce, I have to probably take a rhodochrosite.
Yeah.
Because that's an abundant stone.
Rhodochrosite?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't ask about that one.
Ajoite is every now and then Mother Earth brings us some tools for further consciousness and further our growth, and they come in certain times. And in the last 50, 60 years, there were a few very interesting minerals came to light, which are really only working on the upper chakras, throat, third eye, and higher. And I say higher because there's more than 7, but we don't want to go into that. And Ajoite was discovered in South Africa, in Messina. And, well, actually, that's not true. It was discovered in Ajoite. It's a place in New Mexico, I believe. And it's a blue copper mineral. And it was discovered in solid quartz. You had some blue, light blue streaks in it. And then in South Africa, in this mine, they found quartz crystals with phantoms and inclusions of this mineral, which is needle-like, hair-like crystals of I don't even know what kind of turquoise blue, what?
Is this the same you showed me yesterday on that?
No,
big?
That's a different one.
Okay.
And what it really basically, the mine unfortunately is closed already, and there's only a certain amount of these stones out. What it really does is intensely so makes you aware of your hang-ups, of the programs we have which are not really beneficial anymore.
Okay, remind me to not get a hold of this stone.
Well, you get usually what you ask for, right?
Okay, yeah.
And this is a very strong. I mean, my partner, she had this experience when I luckily laid hands on a bunch of these. Being also a dealer in times makes one have the best ones of what one has before one sells the rest. And we had this amazing Ajoite crystal, which I gifted to her, and she was putting it in her bed the first night and started throwing up in the middle of the night. Her tongue was blue like the color of Ajoite, and it was really intense. And there came images and stories with this throwing up and cleansing out of unwanted and unnecessary stories. Wow. It's not always like that, but there is a good possibility that one has strong responses, specifically if one's intent is to really see.
These are really rare and expensive now. I mean, you had a tiny one. I was like, "How much is this?" Is it like $80? You're like, "Oh no, it's just about $1,000
for this one."
No.
Okay.
No. That one is like maybe $50. Like
that's still a lot for like it's the size of my finger.
I mean, it's tiny, weeny, and it's $50.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so that's Ajoite. Moving on.
What if I put this in water? What would happen?
You clean the crystal first, and then you get the energetics of Ajoite into the water.
Yeah.
So the benefit or the vibration, so to speak, of Ajoite comes into the water. And that vibration is in harmony with letting go.
So basically, if I drink Ajoite water, I am asking for an ass whooping for my blind spots?
Not necessarily, but you can be open to see them and deal with them. If that's an ass whooping, that would be up to you.
Anybody who's listening, make a mental note that if you are into truth, get the stone, and if you're not, stay away from it.
Okay, so you mentioned another stone. Why don't we just throw that one up? One for attracting abundance. What was that?
Rhodochrosite. Rhodochrosite. Yes.
Okay. We don't have one here.
I didn't bring one down. I do have them. They're like a meaty pink, orange, red color.
Oh wow! I want one.
And they're actually very yummy stones. And the basic.
Oh, I see it now. We see it on. Casper just Googled it.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a extreme beautiful version of a rose quartz kind of reality.
I think we need this.
we put a picture up for that. And,
do you have any of these?
I have some. Yeah.
Oh man, are they expensive?
That depends. Actually, it's really funny with crystals. I mean, There is rhodochrosite, which you buy in Peru for $5. The same crystal form, the same size, if it would come from the United States or a certain mine, would be $5,000.
Are you kidding me?
No. So prices and crystals are very interesting, and also mining crystals is very interesting because they are beings. They do have consciousness, one which we don't understand necessarily, but nevertheless. And mining usually rips them out of the earth in a not very nice
respectful way.
Respectful way. So most beneficial would be to go out rock hunting yourself. Now that's not possible for everybody.
No.
And going into stores is the only option. Mm-hmm. One can ask if that was consciously mined, because it's already starting that people start mining consciously.
Okay.
And if not, one can always do a forgiveness ceremony with the crystal. I treat crystal as people, so to speak. Yeah. Yes. And like plants and everything. We've been trained in the Andean tradition of Pacos, and there one of the basic understanding is that everything is living energy, including us, including rocks, including crystals, and we can communicate with these energies. And that's where crystal can help you also to become more aware of your intuition. Program your quartz crystal to become more aware, more intuitive, more trusting. What have you not?
Which crystal would you say is the one that has the most healing benefits for the physical body?
Agate.
Agate.
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
Agate.
Agate. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Agate is actually the same as quartz.
Okay. But it doesn't look like quartz.
No, it doesn't look like quartz because it's microcrystalline. It's not crystalline. It grows differently than quartz, but it's the same chemical composition.
Yeah. Okay.
And it comes in all colors.
Yeah, I can see. We are having it on Google Images right now.
And it's a very grounding stone. So if you're like a person who is always a little bit over the top or hyper or really strong energy, and you want to calm down a little bit, ground yourself a little bit, have an agate in the pocket. Plus, you can do grounding exercises, but just having an agate in your pocket grounds you.
I want all these stones, right?
So now
I want abundance and grounding.
I want everything. So I actually, that brings up one question, which is, what if you put let's say 5-6 different kinds of crystals in your water? I'm just speculating right now, but all those 5 different frequencies would be programmed into the water, and I guess you drink that and then you will kind of get that energy from all 5, or is that a bad idea, or what's your thoughts on that?
That really depends. I mean, it seems a little bit overkill because and some crystals and minerals are poisonous, so you want to be careful what you actually put in your water. There's not that many, but there's a few.
Yeah.
And I would just take that crystal and put it in this moment. What I have is I have a bunch of different minerals and crystals. When I give crystal healings, I have a lot of them. And I just go with what crystal wants to be put somewhere. But that's for now. Mm-hmm. If you put it in the water, you constantly get something which is not necessarily beneficial. It's beneficial in this moment, and then I use it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if I put it in my water, it's a constant indigestion of that particular vibration and energy. Whereas when you put a quartz crystal in it and you program it to structure and clean the water and energize the water, that's something we can deal and handle all the time. Mm-hmm. So I really wouldn't put 5 or 6 or 7 crystals. I would just put a quartz crystal in moldavite if you have. Okay. But just a quartz crystal will do the trick.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But so, for example, a crystal that gives abundance, you can get too much of that?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I don't know. That's a funny question. Can I get enough abundance? No, I cannot. I'm talking about stones which...
Well, this little thing you mentioned, where you get all your blind spots coming up.
You can have too much of that.
I can definitely imagine that at one point after some time, you're kind of really worn out, because it's going to try to process you all the time. And at one point you would like to have a break and just integrate whatever you've been processing.
Yes,
so that one, I can totally see why you didn't want this all the time.
Exactly.
But, and also you don't maybe want to go into higher levels of consciousness all the time. There's a time for grounding. There's a time for going up in higher levels of consciousness.
That's why I would never put it in something I constantly indigest, in the water.
Yeah.
And, also, I want to go with my intuition.
Yeah.
Like I'm working with the Ajoite right now, and suddenly it's clear this needs to be put away.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you wake up one morning and look at your altar, and there's an Ajoite sitting, and the Ajoite goes like, long time no see. Then you know you're ready for the next story.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, for example, in your situation, you have quartz crystal and moldavite in your water.
Yeah.
How long would you typically say that you keep your moldavite in your water?
Always.
Or you're always having it?
I have a water filter which takes out sediments. And in the first chamber where the water which comes out of the tap goes in, I have a moldavite and a quartz crystal period.
And so in 6 months from now, you still going to have it? Okay, so moldavite is one of these energies that you want to keep going on?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay, but the other ones are you kind of not really?
Kind of not. And I mean, the moldavite in water, for me, it seems to be an exception. I have moldavites in times which I actually specifically work with in that moment. And that's temporary.
But for the water?
It gives it energizes it in a certain way, which it came to me intuitively. I don't even know if there's a scientific research for that. So I just have that in there all the time.
All the time for you.
Yes.
But maybe another person wouldn't benefit from moldavite all the time in the water? Possible, okay.
The thing is, we do have information about how the crystal works, and on our consciousness they work. The main part, how they work on our consciousness, is really by making us aware what is not in alignment, finding out more about myself. They have physical properties, so that if I have a headache and I take a dioptase, I have a good chance that the headache or a migraine, that will go away or goes away faster. So there are physical effects, but we're talking about consciousness, and that's an energetic effect. And just by becoming aware of, why am I having this stomach pain right now? Or why am I so tense in my shoulders? Or because, the crystals make us aware. And awareness is the only tool we have to get out of anything, even physical dis-ease.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I use crystals also for readings. I use crystals as a channel to the other person to give psychic readings, which is not, I have to say, the normal tarot reading about my future. It's more like, what are my gifts here? What are my challenges? What am I here to do? Like that. Yeah, not about my love life or... I mean, it can be asked and it comes up, but it's more an energetic understanding, being more open to finer energies.
Yeah, you give really awesome readings, and I want to definitely talk about that towards the end. If you guys are interested in working with Vinaya and also maybe getting some crystals from him, he's got an awesome site and he does some really great work. I've had his readings quite a number of times. Very, very insightful.
Thank you.
But okay, so we've covered a few crystals. Is there any like top 3 or 4 we could talk about that are easily available to people that we could look at their properties? Because this is fascinating.
Well, we talked about quartz, which is number one, in all its varieties. Smoky quartz, for example, came to pass because while the crystal was, and by the way, a quartz quartz crystal to grow to any decent size takes thousands of years. It's not just like, 5 years or something. It's thousands of years. And interesting enough, the conditions need to be exactly the same all the time to make a perfect crystal, which never really happens.
Wow.
Perfect in the sense of how the basic structure, the basic molecule, the form of that determines the structure, the form of the crystal. Things happen. Then the crystal gets a little bit crooked because there was an earthquake or less solution or more temperature or this or that. So to have a big, clear crystal like they find them in the Alps takes millions of years.
They find clear crystals in the Alps?
Yes. And of big sizes, like hundreds of kilograms.
Oh, wow. I want one.
What were we talking about?
The question was, can we talk about 3 or 4 more stones?
Oh, 3 or 4 more stones. So, then we came smoky quartz, right.
Yeah.
That grew in a radioactive environment. And energetically, it takes out of our physical or energetic field unbeneficial foreign energies.
Smoky quartz.
Smoky quartz. Rose quartz would be one solely for the heart. I mean, quartz is not solely, but majorly for the heart. Self-love. Loving myself. One of the most challenging things we all have.
Rosy quartz.
Rose quartz, yes. Citrine would be more getting into my power.
It's also a quartz?
Yes, it's a yellow, actually it's got a very funny lemon yellow color. It's very rare. Natural citrine is most likely came to existence like normal citrine, which we buy here in the stores, which is more, has a reddish tinge. It's burnt amethyst, heated amethyst, which turns yellow then. So naturally that can happen, but slightly different than we do it in an oven. So the yellow is very much different, and that's a stone for our personal power.
What can you say about golden topaz?
Golden topaz. Topaz is a very esoteric stone, so to speak. It's a very fine energy, especially golden and champagne topaz.
Yeah.
I use that for cleansing the heart space.
Mm-hmm.
And majorly for that. It has, it's very difficult for me these days to actually say what a stone does, because I forgot all my knowledge somewhat. Mm-hmm. And I only really work in the moment so much, more in the moment. Yeah. So when you give me a stone and say, what does that do? Then I can tell you exactly what that thing does for you.
Because you know what it does for me.
Exactly. And but when you ask me what does this stone does? What was that? What is basically doing? I have no clue.
Yeah.
Or I forgot, or I have to reread it.
Yeah, but also because when you bring a golden topaz to me, or you bring a golden topaz to Casper, you know that there's a big difference between how we're going to respond to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was that stone? The blue ascension stone? What was it called?
Lapis lazuli.
Lapis lazuli.
Tell us about lapis lazuli.
I love that stone.
For some reason, what is it called? One of the
lapis lazuli. The Anasazi Indians are connected to the lapis lazuli, and they ascended as a people at one point. The whole inner core group, they totally went into ascension.
That's why they disappeared.
Yeah, they disappeared in ascension, and their ascension stone is lapis lazuli. And for some reason, I'm so attracted to this stone.
It was in the Seal of Solomon, or in the Shield of Solomon. It is a very old stone, so to speak. I mean, when I say old stone, it's been used for thousands of years.
Quick question: is that toxic to water?
No.
No. Okay.
No. It's a stone of wisdom, or it's called a stone of wisdom. Mm. So, what's wisdom? Actually, it's not knowledge. Mm-hmm. It's
applied knowledge.
Experienced. Mm-hmm. Experience. I can read about love. I might sort of know what love is until I fall in love. then I know what love is.
Yes.
Then I have wisdom because I experienced it.
Yes.
So one connects more with one's intrinsic wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's what that stone mainly is.
So
Useful.
doing this interview, you're holding a smoky quartz?
No, I'm holding a scepter crystal.
Scepter crystal.
Scepter crystal.
And what is that? And why do you hold it during this interview?
Because I'm insecure. No. This is this crystal I found myself. And a scepter quartz is a quartz which is more like a 2-generation affair. First, a quartz crystal as a wand, very elongated with a short tip groove.
Is this a natural formation?
Yes.
Wow, that looks really like a giant phallus symbol.
Well,
it's just me.
Like
I'm projecting my own story.
It looks like a scepter. That's why they call it scepter. Like the kings have this scepter in their hand, which symbolizes wisdom and caring and whatnot. And they call these scepter crystals because they look like this, because the second generation. So the quartz growth stopped. Then another phase started. And another quartz crystal grew on top of the first crystal.
It's quite beautiful, I would say.
And it's bigger and it has a different shape because the conditions of its growth, the environment was different, even though it might be the same cavity. And I use this to come more out of that kind of space of wisdom and compassion. So I hold this when I give readings. It also helps me to ground myself. I programmed this crystal for that.
Okay.
Or actually, it came like this. When I pulled it out of the earth, which is one of the most amazing experiences one can imagine.
You pulled this one out of the earth?
I pulled this one out of the earth.
Oh, wow.
Yes. It's an orgasmic feeling.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's hard to describe.
Yeah.
It was very clear that this crystal was meant for me and came to me to work with as my power tool, so to speak.
Okay.
And I use it for a gazillion things, really, without consciously using it. I let the crystal do its number.
Yeah.
So like when I give readings, I also one needs to be beside oneself so that one doesn't speak, but something speaks.
Get out of your own way, so something
Get out
else.
of my own way kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I use that as well for that.
That's awesome.
Oh, this is awesome. I want to go up to your house now and buy tons of crystals now that I know more about them. It's dangerous.
Some other crystals which I would... amethyst. Very beautiful, energetic cleanser. You don't want to have it too long in sunlight. Even too long means like 5-10 years, then it loses its color. It cleans energetic spaces. It cleans spaces of energetic hucha, as the Incas say, dense, heavy energy.
Yeah.
And it furthers meditation. It furthers the ability to sit down, close your eyes, and watch your mind. Very beneficial stone, I believe. Another fan I am of is calcite, which is a very common mineral.
Can you put that in water?
Yes.
Okay.
If you have very acidic water, it will slowly dissolve.
The crystal will dissolve?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it's a calcium carbonate, so it's not poison for our body if we indigest it, so that's not a problem. And it's very soft, actually. You can scratch it with your fingernail. No, with a knife. Has only 2.5. Anyway, it rejuvenates and nourishes your energy fields. So if you have a green, it's the heart. If you have a yellow one, it's your power. If you have a blue one, and they come in all colors, luckily. Yeah, it works on your throat, your communication. And it works on your energy fields. It nourishes them and rejuvenates them. And beautiful stone to have these days. these days, computer, Wi-Fi, all these good things, which are quite useful and have some side effects. So I would put tourmaline, black tourmaline.
For EMF Wi-Fi?
For my computer screen. For EMF Wi-Fi, I would use organ.
Orgonite?
Orgonite.
Okay.
It's more powerful than any crystal.
Yeah.
Hematite works, but I would use orgonite.
Okay.
For pollution, and that might work a little bit, I'm not sure, but it might work a little bit on Wi-Fi as well, but it works on air pollution and other environmental pollutions, meaning with some solid matter. So what I can smell has solid matter already. Otherwise I wouldn't smell it. So whatever I can smell gets cleaned away by zeolites, which also exist as a supplement to...
Yeah, people eat that.
Yeah.
By the way, orgonite you cannot put in the water because it contains chemicals from the resin that it was made from. So that will leach into the water. So don't put orgonite in your water.
No, that would be more for the room, for the...
I'm just saying this because this is a water...
Yeah.
That brings us to another question. The way most people relate to crystals, the way I have most of my life, is I'll buy one and I'll just put it on the coffee table or in the corner. But what we're talking about here with working with crystals, to be specific, is really actually interacting, holding them, and then the ones that you really want to work with, wearing them on a daily basis and actually having them touch your skin. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes. Even though it's not necessarily that it touches your skin. Mm-hmm. There's some crystals which are too fragile to have as jewelry. Mm-hmm. You put them in a little pouch in your pocket. But it will be in your energy field, and that's what matters. So if you put a crystal on your coffee table, that crystal radiates out a certain energy field, and you will be influenced by it when you sit down there. Yeah, what other crystals would I use? Coming back to the water, it's very interesting in the time we are living, because we are starting a combination between traditions and science. And the old people knew that quartz crystal clean water, that they're beneficial, that they can do journeys with them, many things, and that minerals have influences on our bodies. In the Hindu astrology, crystals or minerals or gemstones are very important. There's a certain stone for you in certain times.
They even grind it up and put it in your medicine to eat.
Yes, which is challenging sometimes, because sometimes they do some poisonous ones, so you have to be careful. But they got it all sussed out. I mean, they have that as a very big tradition. So the old ones knew that there is effects on humans. Now, talking about water and structuring water and cleaning water, I believe that, if I can't spend a few $100 or more than that on a Vogel crystal, a quartz crystal will do the job very nicely. If I want to be 1,000% and really get the Rolls Royce going, I buy myself a Vogel crystal, because that's where the science improved on nature. Mm. Well, not actually improved, but discovered a more beneficial way to use the quartz for healing.
It unlocked its potential.
Yes, thank you. Yes, that's the better way to say it. Not improve on nature, that's not possible, but unlocked its potential. And it's the most effective way to structure water.
So I'm seeing a lot of these Vogel crystals for sale on eBay for very cheap prices. Yes. What's your thoughts on that?
I would have to buy them and measure them to see if they're really correct. There's a lot of artificial quartz around, so that's very hard.
So it's just glass or something?
No, artificial quartz, all right. But there is a difference between natural quartz and artificial quartz. But the dimension have to be right.
Yeah.
And I did some research on the internet, and as far as I can tell, a lot is not correct.
Yeah.
Many are not correct.
Yeah.
And the ones who claim which are correct and seem to be correct because they're reputable sources and they've been verified by people who work with crystals and so on. There are very few, and they're very expensive, like hundreds of dollars.
So if you go and find a Vogel crystal for $20, don't expect it to be real.
Don't expect it to be real. And I am not knowledgeable about the difference between how less effective it is if I'm a few degrees off or a quarter of an inch off. Because I know that as far as shapes are concerned, a pyramid is a pyramid and has the same effect, no matter how steep it is.
Yes.
The Cheops pyramid is the most perfect one.
Well,
which is the most intense.
Yeah, well, there's a Russian pyramid and there's the Cheops pyramid. Both of them are following the golden mean proportions,
right,
but in different ways. So both of them are very fine-tuned and very powerful. But you can make them. I had one made that is looks like it's like that, but it's not. And it's like 10 centimeters, actually not high enough. And the energy is good. But when I got the one that is really in alignment, the energy is a little better.
Yes.
You can feel a difference. So I even think even the Vogel crystals, if they're maybe not cut the perfect way, they still contain some energy,
yes,
but not as good as a real one.
Not as refined or not as strong or not as precise or what. But yes, that's what my thought was. And thanks for that example. Yes.
Yeah.
Because all pyramids have that.
They have the energy, all of them.
But the two ones now, I remember the Russian now, they are the perfect ones and do the strongest and the most effective ways.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the same with the Vogel crystal.
Yes, I can imagine.
So, yes. And besides that, the crystal has the same frequency as water. The most important part in this whole scenario is my intent.
Mm-hmm.
Because without that intent, I put the crystal in the water, nothing necessarily is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I want to charge the crystal and I want to put my intent into the crystal.
So could you just go through in detail exactly what you do to charge? Like, how do you do it with the breath? Like you say, so what do you do internally? So you breathe out through the nose very strongly.
Yes.
And then, but what is going on in your mind and in your heart when you do that?
So first I breathe in. Breathe onto the crystal and I can actually, it doesn't matter how close I am to the crystal. Dr. Vogel found out that no matter how far away he is from that object, he is putting the energy in. It still got it. Mm-hmm. He measured that. So he was amazed by that himself. He goes 100 feet away and the plant still receives his energy.
That's interesting.
Yeah. He started off with plants and measured their reaction. Mm-hmm. And he was 100 feet away and he said, same story. Mm-hmm. So I blow into the crystal with my breath and have in my head the intent.
Mm-hmm. What intent? Like, for example?
Charge my water. Mm-hmm. Charge my water. Charge my water.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I do it until I have the intuition that the crystal got it. It's done.
And what is your own particular experience of how many times do you breathe usually?
I don't use that breath method.
Oh.
I use the soul intention mind breath method.
But I think that's because you're pretty refined now. But so I think a guy like me who's not used to it, I would like to do the breath because it's kind of physical expression.
Okay. Yeah.
It gives me that idea that I'm pushing this out into the crystal.
Yeah.
I think that visualization in it itself is powerful. So would you say 3 times is enough, or would you say like 20 or what? Like,
I would say if you have it only in your mind. So what would be okay, if you have it only in your mind 20 times as an example, okay?
Then it's 20. Okay.
Now, if you make a little intention meditation before, where you get clear what you want, I want you to charge my water. Before you do the exercise, you also feel how it feels when you drink recharged water. And get that into you.
Now we're talking.
And then you do that then probably 1, 2, or 3 times is enough.
Yeah. So this is not just a mental exercise. You have to feel it in your heart.
It would be more strong, more beneficial. Mental works. Mm-hmm. The heart on top of it is 1,000 times more stronger. Mm-hmm. So, but mental works. Until Greg Braden, I only worked mental. And then through his experiments, he found out that the heart intention, the feeling of how do you feel when this is happening, right? So he used the divine matrix, the ether, which connects everything. And then the feeling is like, when I say, one day I will have a girlfriend. It will never happen, really, because one day is always one day.
Yeah, it's not today.
If I put myself into the feeling of how it feels when I have my girlfriend, that feeling of you have in the heart is 1,000 times more stronger in intention and a shout out to the universe what your intention is. It's more clear. It doesn't necessarily get fulfilled, but still it's more strong.
So to the listeners out there, if you want a girlfriend, you can program your water to help you with that.
Yes. Well, it's better to be more clear about your intent. And that works with crystals as well. Whatever you put in, how really clear you are that is what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also if it's in alignment with your heart and your higher purpose in life, because sometimes we're wishing for things that are so not good for us.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not about getting what you want. It's about getting what you need.
Being available for that.
Yeah.
And open when the universe gives it to you.
Yeah.
Well, do you have anything else before we wrap up the interview? Last words about crystals. I think this is a pretty good point for us to wrap up. I mean, it was just so much we could talk about, but I mean, it's way more fascinating and in depth than I thought.
But maybe we could, at one point, make you available for a live podcast or live
question
where people can call in and do some live where they write in the chat and call in and ask questions about crystals.
Would be my pleasure.
And many people can listen and learn, because I can already imagine there's tons of practical questions that's going to come up.
Probably. And at the same time, it's all very straightforward and easy.
Yes.
And the challenge for most of us is the intuition part. Mm-hmm. Like when I give crystal healings, I really have to get out of my mind. Mm-hmm. Because when I look at what I'm doing, my mind usually goes like, dude,
what are you doing?
What are you doing? And then sometimes I doubt myself, but then the client comes off the table and gives me the feedback and I go like, yeah, okay. I don't know what I'm doing, but something is happening.
Yeah.
The intuition is a very strong part in this whole experience. Yeah. And yes, there's practical things, how you make layouts and other things, but I'm more than happy for that. Yes, it's my passion for the last 45 years.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much. And you guys, if you enjoyed listening to Vinaya, and if you want to learn more, I highly recommend his services. Check out his website. It is
psychiccrystalreadings.com.
psychiccrystalreadings.com. The link is below and like on the podcast page on ever.is for this podcast. Put it right in the description and check that out. Vinaya does awesome readings where you get to spend an hour and a half, sometimes longer, with him and go in depth into your story. And you do these online as well, right?
So, yes, you don't need to be in person with me, because as Dr. Vogel found out, he is 100 feet away and there's no difference in the energetic transmission. One does not need to be physical presence.
So you do Skype one-on-one?
I do Skype one-on-one. Yes.
Okay, cool.
And you also have tons and tons of crystals for sale right now. You're trying to get rid of them. And like every imaginable crystal, you could dream of, he has them. So contact this guy. Check it out. Thanks a lot, dude.
Thank you, guys.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao, guys.